This mode provides drum machine-like functionality. It's got 3 sub-modes. In the default sub-mode, you have a 4x4 grid of drum pads to work with. Alright, right now these are controlling the default grid in Live's drum rack. You can change that though with these buttons here. So for example, I've got some samples in the grid above this one, so I can move to that by moving the grid selector here to the right. Alright, and I can move back to the default grid by moving back to the left. Alright, and you got 6 of those 4x4 grids to work with. Alright, out in the corners here you've got last pads, and these will trigger whichever pad you hit last. Alright, you can also lock them so that they stay locked on the current pad. Alright, you can control the velocity of the last pads and the drum pads with these buttons over here. The pads in this mode have some additional functionality. In order to show you that, I'll need to record a clip, and that'll also allow me to show you the clip record function that I mentioned before. That's one of the additional global controls up here, and that will record a clip that's equal to the current global quantization value. So in this case I want to record a 2-bar clip, so I'm going to set global quantization to 2 bars. I'm also going to switch into clip view so we can see what's going on, turn the metronome on, and get ready to record. As you can see, the pads that I use lit up green, and what that's indicating is that the notes those pads send exist in the selected clip. So it's basically an indication of what's going on in your clip, what pads are being used. Alright, over here you've got a note mute button, and the way this works is you press this down plus a pad, and that'll mute the note associated with that pad. So, alright, to unmute all notes, shift plus mute. Alright, the button underneath that is note erase, and this will erase notes for the portion of time that you hold it down for. Alright, so to show you how this works, I'm going to erase every other set of shakers. And finally over here you've got note delete, and this will just delete the note altogether. In the 16 level sub mode, the pads on the left work just like the drum pads in default mode, except they also select the pad for these pads to play. Alright, and these give you 16 levels of velocity control. In the sequence sub mode, you can step sequence into MIDI clips. It requires that the clip be in 4/4 and that it's at least 1 bar long. Alright, for this example I'm going to use the clip I created earlier. And right now its loop is 2 bars long. For the first part of the example though, I only want to use the first bar. So to change that I'm going to press shift. Alright, now on this page, the top buttons up here select which part of the clip you're editing. Right now that's set to bar 1, which is what I want. And then down here, these buttons choose which part of the clip is looping. Right now that's set to bars 1 and 2. I'm going to change that to just bar 1. We'll come back to these buttons in just a minute. Now these pads over here work just like the drum pads in the previous mode, except they select the note to edit. Alright, in this case I want to add a shaker part. Alright, now with the velocity of the steps that you turn on, you can choose a fixed velocity, just like in the previous modes. And you can also press the button a second time to access randomized velocity. So that's what I'm going to do here, and I'll just turn on some steps. Alright, now right now I'm working with 16th notes, but you can also zoom in to work with 30 seconds. Alright, back on the edit page, with these buttons over here you can copy and paste. These buttons choose which bar to copy. I'm going to choose bar 1, and then these buttons choose which bar to paste into. I'm going to choose bar 2. Alright, I'm also going to change the loop position and the edit position so I can make some changes in the second bar. Here you've got scale pads which could play a variety of scale types. By default they'll play a chromatic scale. Alright, you can change that by pressing shift. And here you've got 40 scale types to choose from. They're arranged alphabetically. Alright, and the green LEDs indicate common scale types: blues, chromatic, major, and minor. Alright, this button down here will play a preview of the selected scale type. Alright, and then down here you can set the root note. Right now that's C. We could change that to F, for example. Alright, and when you exit this mode, the scale pads will be assigned to the scale type and root note that you selected. Here you have velocity controls that work just like in drum mode. Here you have a sustain button. Right, these are octave controls. Here you have pitch bend. All right, and then here you have add note functions. Right now the scale pads are playing one note each. This will add a note an octave above the scale pads. This will add a note an octave below the scale pads. And you can use both at the same time as well. In this mode, you can learn chords and their associated notes to the button rows. You can learn up to 8 chords, and each chord can have up to 6 notes in it. All right, there's a couple different ways to do the learning. You can do it by playing the chords from a second controller. To do that, you press Shift plus one of the buttons on the first column to activate learning for that row, and then just play the chord from your second controller. You can play the notes individually or all at the same time. And then when you're done learning, just press the button again, and now the chord is assigned here, and the notes are assigned next to it. Alright, to show you that again. Alright, you can also learn chords that are contained in MIDI clips in Live. The process for that is basically the same. You activate learning, and then just launch the clip. Alright, over here you've got velocity controls, just like in the previous modes. Here you've got a sustain button, and then here you've got transposition controls. You can transpose in semitones or in octaves.